Hi guys, welcome back to Lessons with Miss Lewis. Let's talk learning targets. We are learning to read a text closely. You know you have it when you can ask and answer questions and make and support logical inferences to make meaning from the text. All right, I'm going to repeat them and I want you to say them with me. I am learning to read a text closely. I know I have it when I can ask and answer questions and make and support logical inferences to make meaning from the text. Awesome. It's time to dig in deep to our novel study. So before we begin, let's talk about what it means to read closely. So we have our strong reader checklist. A strong reader does all of these things on their checklist every single time they read. And a strong reader always does their best to understand what they're reading and make meaning out of it. So let's see what a strong reader does. A strong reader asks questions. So as you're reading a text, you ask yourself questions like, what does this mean? I wonder what's happening here. And then after that strong reader asks the questions, they seek answers to their questions. So they don't just let the question just sit there. They seek answers. So if there's something in the text that they don't understand, they go and try to find the answer to it. So they don't know what a word means, they use strategies to figure it out, or they look it up. All right, then a strong reader makes logical inferences. So you see what's happening in text, and you think about things as they're going along. And you don't just make them up randomly. You use what's happening in the text to make it logical and make it make sense. So if your main character has 10 cats, you might say, my character is probably a cat person. Because a logical inference from a person having 10 cats would be that they like cats. And then you support the inferences based on text evidence. So you go back into the text and say, based on this, this, and this, I can see that this is happening or that a character is thinking about this, right? All right, the most important thing on the strong reader checklist is making meaning. So that's all reading is, babes. Making meaning. So if you can take some of the things that you're reading and apply it to your life or think about things that you might not have thought about before, that is making meaning, and that's what a strong reader does. And something that really helps a strong reader is jot thoughts. So you think about things as you're reading, ask yourself questions, comments, and write them down. That's what a strong reader does. And I'm going to teach you how to do everything on the strong reader checklist. And I bet you already know how to do most of these things. All right, now I want you to go grab your books and meet me back here. All right, go. All right, guys, welcome to my tutorial on close reading. So you're going to need a couple of things. You're going to need Post-its or paper. Either one is fine. You're going to need some scissors and something to write with. Don't worry if you don't have any of that stuff. Problem solve and get creative. I'm confident that you can work it out. Alright, so I'm going to start by making my thought tracks. I have a couple of regular Post-it notes here, and I'm just going to take my scissors and cut just like this. So I get a little thin piece, just like this. You might want to make the stack pretty thin so that you don't get your edges all messed up. And I'm just going to do it one more time. So you can make lots of thought tracks with a little bit of Post-it notes. So this is what you should have when you're finished. And if you use pieces of paper, they might be bigger. You're just going to stuff them, Oh, don't forget, you have to have your one crazy summer text, of course. All right, now let's get into the close reading. Alright guys, so I've got my thought tracks here, my something to write with, and of course my text. And so now we're going to start by taking a look at the cover. Okay, so I notice the title here, One Crazy Summer, so I'm thinking obviously maybe the book takes place in summertime. And I notice 1, 2, 3 girls. This one has a doll, so I'm thinking maybe that she's young. I can see letters in a different language here. The sun is nice and really big. I think I see some people here with signs. It looks like a lot of people here, so I'm kind of wondering what's happening there. This person seems to be like in the front, so maybe this is the main character. I'm not sure though. All right, now it's time to get into the reading. A close reader takes stock of everything that's happening. So of course you want to start with the cover, right? Now, it's always good to read the synopsis that an author gives you. All right, so we're going to start here. 11-year-old Delphine has it together, even though her mother, Cecile, abandoned her and her younger sisters, Vanetta and Fern, 7 years ago. Even though her father and Big Ma will send them to Brooklyn to Oakland, California, to stay with Cecile for the summer. And even though Delphine will have to take care of her sisters, as usual, and learn the truth about the missing pieces of the past. When the girls arrive in Oakland in the summer of 1968, Cecile wants nothing to do with them. She makes them eat Chinese takeout dinners, forbids them to enter her kitchen, and never explains the strange visitors with afros and black berets who knock on her door. Rather than spend time with them, Cecile sends Delphine, Vanetta, and Fern to a summer camp sponsored by a revolutionary group, the Black Panthers, where the girls get a radical new education. Set during one of the most tumultuous years in recent American history, One Crazy Summer is the heartbreaking, funny tale of 3 girls in search of the mother who abandoned them. An unforgettable story told by a distinguished author of books for children and teens, Rita Williams Garcia. Wow, so that gave us a lot of insight about what the book is going to be about. Let's go ahead and start reading. One Crazy Summer by Rita Williams Garcia. Chapter 1. Cassius Clay Clouds. Good thing the plane had seatbelts and we'd been strapped in tight before takeoff. Without them, that last jolt would have been enough to throw Vanetta into orbit and Fern across the aisle. Still, I anchored myself and my sisters best as I could to brace us for whatever came next. Those clouds weren't through with us yet and dealt another Cassius Clay left and a right jab to the body of our Boeing 727. Vanetta shrieked, then stuck her thumb in her mouth. Fern bit down on Miss Pattycake's pink plastic arm. I kept my whimper to myself. It was bad enough my insides squeezed in and stretched out like a monkey grinder's accordion. No need to let anyone know how frightened I was. Ooh, reading right there, I can tell that the narrator is frightened, but I've never heard of this word, monkey grinder's accordion. So I'm going to take one of my thought tracks and mark that so that later I can go back and try to figure out what that means. But I can tell, based on what I read around those words, that it has something to do with being nervous or frightened. I took a breath so when my mouth finally opened, I'd sound like myself and not like some scared rabbit. It's just the clouds bumping, I told my sisters, like they bumped over Detroit and Chicago and Denver. Vanetta pulled her thumb out of her mouth and her head in her lap. Fern held on to Miss Pattycake. They listened to me. We push our way up in the clouds. The clouds get mad and push back, like you and Fern fighting over red and gold crayons. I didn't know about clouds fighting and pushing for a fact, but I had to tell my sisters something. As long as Vanetta kept her fear to one shriek and Fern kept hers to biting Miss Pattycake, I kept on spinning straw, making everything all right. I've never heard of that term spinning straw before, so I'm going to mark that with a thought track and see if maybe I can find out about what that means by going back and rereading. That's mainly what I do, keep Vanetta and Fern in line. The last thing Pa and Big Ma wanted to hear about was how we made a grand Negro spectacle of ourselves 30,000 feet up in the air around all these white people. You know how Papa is, I told them. No way he'd put us on a plane if it were dangerous. They halfway believed me. Just as I had that soft plastic arm out of Fern's mouth, those Cassius Clay fighting clouds threw our 727 another jab. Big Ma, that's Pa's mother, still says Cassius Clay. Pa says Muhammad Ali or just Ali. I slide back and forth from Cassius Clay to Muhammad Ali. Whatever picture comes to mind. With Cassius Clay, you hear the clash of fists, like the plane getting jabbed and punched. With Muhammad Ali, you see a mighty mountain, greater than Everest, and can't no one knock down a mountain. All the way to the airport, Pa had tried to act like he was dropping off 3 sacks of wash at the laundromat. I'd seen through Pa. He's no Vanetta putting on performances. He only has 1 or 2 faces. Nothing hidden, nothing exaggerated. Even though it had been his idea we fly out to Oakland to see Cecile, Pa had never once said how exciting our trip would be. He just said that seeing Cecile was something whose time had come, that it had to be done. Just because he decided it was time for us to see her didn't mean he wanted us to go. My sisters and I had stayed up practically all night, California dreaming about what seemed like the other side of the world. We saw ourselves riding wild waves on surfboards, picking oranges and apples off fruit trees, filling our autograph books with signatures from movie stars we'd see in soda shops. Even better, we saw ourselves going to Disneyland. When I think about what the narrator thinks about what their trip would be like, I see that it's really different from what the dad thinks that the trip would be like. We had watched airplanes lift up and fly off into blue sky as we neared the airport. Every time another airliner flew overhead, leaving a trail of white and gray smoke, Big Ma fanned herself and asked, "Jesus, why?" Big Ma had kept quiet long enough. Once inside the terminal, she let it all hang out. She told Pa, "I don't mind saying it, but this isn't right. Coming out to Idlewild and putting these girls on a plane so Cecile can see what she left behind. If she wants to see, let her get on an airplane and fly out to New York." Big Ma doesn't care if President Kennedy's face is on the $50 or if the airport is now officially named after him. She calls the airport by its old name, Idlewild. Don't get me wrong, Big Ma was as mad and sad as anyone when they killed the president. It's change she has no pity on. However things are stamped in Big Ma's mind is how they will be, now and forever. Idlewild will never be JFK. Cassius Clay will never be Muhammad Ali. Cecile will never be anything other than Cecile. I can't say I blamed Big Ma for feeling the way she did. I certainly didn't forgive Cecile. When Cecile left, Fern wasn't on the bottle. Vanetta could walk but wanted to be picked up. I was 4 going on 5. So it seems like they were all really small. Pa wasn't sick, but he wasn't doing well either. That was when Big Ma came up from Alabama to see about us. Even though Big Ma read her scripture daily, she hadn't considered forgiveness where Cecile was concerned. Cecile wasn't what the Bible meant when it spoke of love and forgiveness. Only judgment. And believe me, Big Ma had plenty of judgment for Cecile. So even if Cecile showed up on Papa's welcome mat, Big Ma wouldn't swing the front door open. That was why Pa had put us on a plane to Oakland. Either Cecile wouldn't come back to Brooklyn, or she wasn't welcome. Honestly, I don't think Pa could choose between Big Ma and Cecile, even after Cecile had left him. And us. even after Cecile proved Big Ma right. "How can you send them to Oakland? Oakland's nothing but a boiling pot of trouble cooking. All them riots." Pa has a respectful way of ignoring Big Ma. I wanted to smile. He's good at it. A shrill voice had announced the departing flight to Oakland. All three of us had butterflies. Ooh, I know when I have butterflies, that means I'm nervous. So maybe these characters are nervous too. Our first airplane ride. Way up above Brooklyn, above New York, above the world. Although I could at least keep still, Vanetta and Fern stamped their feet like holy rollers at a revival meeting. Big Ma had grabbed them by the first scruff of fabric she can get a hold of, bent down, and told them to act right. There weren't too many of us in the waiting room, and too many of them were staring. I'd taken a quick count out of habit. Vanetta, Fern, and I were the only Negro children. There were 2 soldier boys in green uniforms who didn't look older than Uncle Darnell. High school cap and gown one day, Army boots and basic training 4 days later. I know that Negro is a term that used to be used for African American people, so maybe that's what they're talking about here. 2 teenage girls with afros. Maybe they were college students. And one lady dressed like Jackie Kennedy, carrying a small oval suitcase. Big Ma had also scattered around the waiting room. I'm going to pause right here and grab one of my thought tracks because I want to take note of Big Ma's feelings right here. Big Ma does not seem to like Cecile. I just want to make sure I keep a good note of that. Big Ma had also scouted around the waiting room. I knew she was worried that we'd be mistreated in some way, and sought out a grown brown face to look out for us. Big Ma turned her nose up at the college girls with afros in favor of the Negro lady in the square sunglasses and snappy suit toting the equally snappy oval bag. I wonder if Big Ma is worried about the girls being mistreated because of the time that it was. I know this book is set in 1968, and in social studies we've talked about how the civil rights movement was going on at that time, and African Americans were sometimes treated differently based on the color of their skin. So maybe that's why Big Ma is so worried. Big Ma made eye contact with her. When we lined up, she told the Negro Jackie Kennedy, "These my grandbabies. You look out for 'em, you hear?" The snappy Negro lady had been nice enough to smile, but hadn't returned the look that Big Ma expected. And Big Ma had expected the look Negro people silently passed to each other. She'd expected this stranger to say, as if she were a neighbor, "They're as good as my own. I'll make sure they don't misbehave or be an embarrassment to the Negro race." A blank movie star smile had been all she passed to Big Ma. That lady had only been looking out for her plane seat. Papa had already given me a paper with the phone number to our house, which I knew by heart, and the phone number to his job. He had already told me that his job number was for emergencies only and not for how you doing chats. Last night he had also given me an envelope with $200 and $10 and $20 bills to put in my suitcase. Instead, I'd folded the bills and stuffed them in my tennis shoe before we left Herkimer Street. Walking on that mound of money felt weird at first, but at least I knew the money was safe. Papa had kissed Vanetta and Fern and told me to look after my sisters. Even though looking after them would have been nothing new, I kissed him and said, "I will, Papa." When the line to the ticket taker had begun to move, Big Ma had gotten teary and mushed us up in her loose-fitting violet and green muumuu dress. "Better come on and get some lovin' now." She hadn't had to finish the rest about how this might be the last time in a long while for kissing and hugging. A flash of memory told me Cecile wasn't one for kissing and hugging. I had a lot of those memories clicking before me like projector slides in the dark. Lots of pictures, smells, and sounds flashing in and out. Mostly about Cecile. All going way, way back. And what I didn't remember clearly, Uncle Darnell always filled in. At least Uncle Darnell remembers Cecile kindly. And that's going to be the end of chapter 1. So now is when I would take some of my thought tracks and write down some of my thoughts or questions about what happened in the chapter. So then I can go and seek the answers to my questions, ask my teacher for help, or just take note about my own thoughts. It's been a pleasure reading this chapter with you. See you later.